Hi and welcome to my tutorial on changing the suspension spheres on a Citroen Xantia, and as such it has 6 spheres in total, one on each corner, one for each wheel, and then it has an anti-sink sphere and an accumulator sphere. This is the left hand or near side suspension sphere. You'll see the actuator there, the rod coming down in there and right the way up to the sphere itself that it screws into. There's the hydraulic pipe going into the side and the clip that holds it all together. And basically we need to unscrew this sphere while it's depressurized, and I'll just run through the procedure for that in a second and then replace it with a new one. Okay, we're back out from under the car. I'm just going to run you through the procedure for depressurizing the system, which I've already done. And then the tools that you'll need for the job. So first and foremost, with any Citroen with an anti-sink sphere at the back, you need to depressurize the system with the engine running, because that sphere actually maintains the pressure in the rear. You can't do it with the engine off. Specialist garages can, but you need specialist equipment, but by the by. So what you do is, with the engine running and the car up on ramps, you ideally need to slacken off the spheres already. You'll need a strap wrench or a special tool which looks something like this. Basically a steel band with a bolt that clamps onto the cylinder, a strengthening bracket and a big sturdy handle that you can give it a good welly with a hammer if need be. And that's the tool there. Now some people use chisels to loosen the spheres. Apparently it works, and I know they're very, very thick, but I just don't like the idea of that at all. Something that's potentially under a great deal of pressure, whacking it with a cold chisel. But by the by, so you slacken the spheres off while it's up in the air. You then, with the engine running, set the suspension to minimum so it sinks right down to the bottom. Leave it running for a couple of minutes, so just to make sure it's fully sunk and the system's bled back through, so that all the fluids bled back through the system there. Once it's down, you then need to get underneath and remove the old spheres, clean the area, put the new seal on with a bit of grease and put the sphere back on. For removal, you will generally need a removal tool or a strap wrench, a big hefty Stilson to hold the actual part that the sphere screws into. Very useful because they can corrode and be very tight. 2 or 3 days, a great deal of patience, wire brush and WD-40 I found. Once the suspension's fully down, you need to switch the engine off, back to the depressurizing, and next to the accumulator sphere there's a 12mm bolt head. You need to undo that by one full turn, no more, because there's a spring-loaded ball bearing valve behind it which can be easily lost. And you will then need your replacement sphere, which comes looking something like this. So you get underneath, you slacken off the sphere, you undo it by hand, being very careful just to make sure it's just in case it's under pressure. As in this one now, the bladder had ruptured, and what had happened is it had held quite a bit of fluid. Now ordinarily with the bladder full, the nitrogen in the sphere would push it to the hole, pushing all the fluid out, so it kind of comes out a bit like a fountain. So when you remove them, have a good sturdy thick plastic bag handy to drop the sphere into, because you will get a bit of fluid leakage. You then clean up the area with a bit of clean rag, lint-free rag, the mating surface, and put some grease around the seal and fit the seal to the actual suspension unit itself, and then screw in the sphere by hand until it's tight, and then just give it a good nip up by hand. The main thing to be careful of is that you don't jiggle this about too much, because you've got this solid brake pipe going into the sphere here, which too much jiggling could fracture, which obviously you don't want, because then you'll have to replace the whole brake pipe assembly up there. Okay, we're here under the car on the near side. That's the actual suspension unit that the sphere screws into. There's the hydraulic pipe that you can see coming in there, and the clip that holds the unit through the bent metal bracket that's part of this whole shaped piece. Now you can just about see where my fingernail is there. the lip where the seal for the sphere sits. So basically the procedure is the same for the front offside and near side, both the same. So we're going to whip that one off now, and you'll see the general procedure. Take the suspension tool. This is similar to the Pleiades tool. Very much well worth getting a specialised tool. The strap wrenches generally okay, but certainly my experience of the rear ones has taught me that there's really no substitute for something like this. If you can't remove a sphere with a tool like this, then you're pretty much stuffed. You might as well take it to a garage. So nip that nice and tight, and there we are. The front ones as a rule are nowhere near as awkward as the rear ones, basically because they're protected underneath the bonnet here, so you don't get gallons and gallons of road crud, salt, rubbish and what have you. Unless of course you're lucky enough to live in a hot dry country where of course you don't get any of that, which would be great. So I've got a bag. Now I'd normally use a big sturdy food bag. Unfortunately they've all been used for food. The cheek, can you imagine? So basically it's a little bit of improvisation, a couple of carrier bags, and it's good for the environment. You're putting your carrier bags to good use. It's recycling at its best. So here we go. So I don't know if you can see that, but literally we're just unscrewing that by hand, and off that comes. There we go. A little bit of fluid leakage, as you can see, but catch as much of that as you can in the bag, and we'll pop out the old seal there, which is in surprisingly good condition, and pop that on the sphere, and we get our rag, and basically just give that a bit of a wipe down. Just your typical Castrol, tub from Halfords. Smear of grease and fit the seal into the groove, like so. And then just another dab of grease. Now the grease serves two purposes. Basically it helps you fit the ring into the little groove more easily, and allows you to nip up the suspension sphere by hand just that little bit more tightly and get a good seal on there without it actually moving, twisting and preventing the seal. Take your sphere and just carefully align that, give it a little bit of a twiddle until you feel the thread start to lock in, and spin it in just like that. As simple as that even. It's just like changing an oil filter. Get it so it's tight, and then give it a good nip up by hand. There you go. Thanks for watching. Of course the next procedure, once all of them are done, is to start the car, allow it to rise to its normal height, and then cycle it up and down through the lowest and the highest settings 2 or 3 times just to make sure it's working, and then give it a bounce, check the suspension's working. There are means and ways of priming the pump if it doesn't rise normally, which is explained in the manual. It's not something I'm going to do unless I have to do, but hopefully that should be it.